Welcome to the Plant-Based Podcast. Did you know that plants are truly amazing? Not only can you grow them and eat them, you can also wear them, drink them, nourish your skin with them, and so much more. Let Ellen and Michael inspire you to love plants as much as they do, as they chat with the movers and shakers in this wonderful plant-based world. So, let's dig in.
Hey guys, the sponsor for Series 16 of the Plant-Based Podcast is Grow This Not That, which is the Substack by myself, Michael Perry, also known as Mr. Plant Geek. This is the place where you can get all the hot happenings in the hort world directly to your inbox. Every Friday there's a hort report which brings together the influencer, industry and home gardener worlds, and every Wednesday I'll recommend 5 plants that you can grow, and subscribers get an extra free as well. All you need to do to find out more about my wonderful Substack called Grow This Not That is go to mrplantgeek.substack.
Today's guest is a journalist, author, designer, and garden consultant. She's worked extensively within the gardening and lifestyle media as a writer and broadcaster. Plus, she lectures on a range of specialist subjects. She's written a number of popular gardening books, which we'll hear more about shortly, and is an award-winning designer. I mean, this is a huge list, often has an environmental focus with that as well. So with all of that in mind, our guest, Naomi Slade, also has a new book just released about chrysanthemums, which is one of the many things we're going to talk about today. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much.
Hey, good to have you here. I literally, last week, I was in Holland, exposed to some chrysanthemums, and I was like, not the other way around, but it was just like, I felt like it's just ripe for this revival. So you've timed everything perfectly. I think it is just around the corner, and we're going to start to enjoy chrysanthemums as much as dahlias and also maybe gladioli. Have you written about gladioli yet, by the way?
I haven't written about gladioli yet.
Yeah.
That's book 11, I can tell.
I'll should I make a little note, gladioli, top tip from Michael.
Oh, yeah, gladioli.
I love them.
It's on the cusp as well. I don't know if you follow Fam Flower Farm, but they've started to put together some beautiful collections, and that could be, I think gladioli is next after chrysanthemums. So anyway.
Yeah. They have glamorous quality, don't they? That kind of ta-da about them.
Yeah, and the nostalgia, which you get with all of these things that we're chatting about today.
Yes. I mean, that's, again, a very strong theme with the beautiful variety series of books, of which Chrysanthemums is one. There's the nostalgia, there's the sort of almost sepia quality, the heritage varieties, that kind of lavish, luscious beauty. Nothing minimalist about these flowers.
Oh, I love that. I don't want minimalist. I want maximalist in the garden. Totally. Naomi, we mentioned as in the intro how many horticultural hats that you have on. You are really well known. But first of all, before we start to kind of delve into all those different amazing things that you do, where did it all begin for you? Have you always been into gardening and plants, or how did it start?
I have always been into gardening and plants. Some of my earliest memories are sort of pottering around in the garden, looking at flowers, looking into the depths of a tulip, which is about nose height, one of those big, glorious red ones with black centres, playing with caterpillars and looking at the bees. I can't remember a time when I wasn't into kind of plants and wildlife and growing things. And so I've always known that's what I was into. But you kind of grow up and you kind of go to school and you think, well, how on earth do I turn this into any sort of job? And who pays anybody for pottering in the garden, guys? I mean, how is that a career? So, I was kind of inspired by David Attenborough, by Gerald Durrell, I watched the Really Wild show, and I thought maybe when I grow up I'll present Tomorrow's World. Do you remember Tomorrow's World?
Yeah.
Yeah, wow.
But that would be great. So, I went off and I thought, well, okay, I'll do a degree in biology, and I kind of did mostly sort of environmental bits and ecology and, plant physiology and those sorts of things, turned it to my will, and then sort of drifted around for a bit. And then I fell into it. I ended up against quite long odds getting a job on Which Gardening magazine is their shows and events organizer. So, and it kind of felt like I'd come home. This was my tribe. These were my people. This is where I belonged in a way that I'd never felt professionally or in any sort of dabbling before. So you could say that I sort of started off my career doing events. I did, think, 64 in 4 years, including Chelsea.
Wow.
What type of events? What type of events would that be at Which? Yeah.
Sort of magazine promotional things, and this was back in the day, the very great day. Been around for a while now. But there were member events, and there were Christmas tree shredding events and environmental events, and there were sort of promotional things. We'd had, growing your own vegetables at exhibits at Chelsea, because that was sort of science and educational, whatever they call it now. And we did something. I remember creating this really epic Mange Touché's long for the first Hatton Park show. Because
oh my God, that sounds so cool.
I've still got the pea cushions and the plush aubergine like cushions. So kind of basically making it lifestyle, but making it gardeny. But it was a great time, because they kind of gave me quite a free rein. And
so cool. You were Pinterest or Pinterest?
Yes, probably. I tend to be a late adopter to these things, but then I got into writing. It's what I love and enjoy it just as much as I enjoy designing and creating things and going off on bonkers rabbit holes. And that's a sensible thing to do, when you've got a young family and so on. And now they're all a bit bigger, actually moving to London for a month and monkeying around Chelsea flower shows is a possibility again. So it's kind of coming around full circle. It's a sort of it's all going on, basically.
You just basically sound really busy and very experienced, and have had loads of wonderful experiences. So it's exciting to get to chat with you more.
Oh, absolutely. Tell us about what you were up to at Chelsea this year then.
Oh my God, it was amazing. It was really intense. So I staged with my co-designer, Dr. Ed Barsley, the Flood Resilient Garden, sponsored by Flood Re. And the idea was, following this incredibly wet, insanely wet winter, and the fact that we're getting more and more extreme weather events, how do we as gardeners respond? And water and how we respond to extreme weather is kind of one of the RHS priorities at the moment. You got drought was last year. This year it was wet. And so we created a very domestic garden. It was on a domestic scale. We built the back of a house. We put a beautiful pergola. But flash flooding and having your house and your garden inundated, it wrecks your life. It's really upsetting. It's traumatic. And we wanted to repurpose flooding as something that wasn't terrifying, but as something we can use this water. We can capture this water. You can capture it in water butts, but have pretty sexy water butts, beautiful sort of large ornamental containment systems, ephemeral ponds. So we based it on suds, we based it on wild landscapes which naturally channel water. We had a big sort of sump, which was also an ornamental pond, beautifully planted. We channeled the water off the high areas into these ponds. So you had nice, well-drained areas, because, even people in soggy gardens want to plant fruit trees and roses and stuff like that. So it was about, for me, looking around and look at how do plants work. It was about sort of almost re-educating people. Okay, what do roses like? Well, they like good drainage and sunshine. How can good drainage? Well, as horticulturists know, you create a nice mound and you give them a bit of root room so they can grow down. And the bigger they get, the better. So choose a nice big rootstock if you're going to have a fruit tree and you're planting it in a location that's not going to be terribly happy with. I mean, I grow a lot of fruit in West Wales, and over many years I've found that the bigger the rootstock, the better, because unfavourable conditions will limit the size of the plant anyway. So you don't want to start out with something that's going to be really tiny and runty, which goes in a pot, if you're going to plant it in what's 6 months of the year, a bog. And it was just supposed to be really enveloping and enjoyable and pleasant and lovely. And I mean, the feedback was fantastic. It was just so good. You know, we had people saying, oh, you know, when you're done, if you could just roll it up and drop it around to my house, that'd be lovely.
That's when you know you've done a good garden, when people saying that all day long.
Yeah.
You can't say fairer than that. You really can't.
Totally.
It was great. The message really got across. It was really timely. Learned a lot. And it was amazing. I mean, I've wanted to go back to Chelsea with a garden for many, many years. So, you know, it was great for me.
It was a very beautiful garden. And I really loved, you know, how the water trickles down the chain. I think that's such a beautiful way of adding like that extra kind of dimension, and also just showing how you can just recycle so many things. Like, you don't have to just use plastic water butts. There's so many ways of collecting water, isn't there? And drainage.
Absolutely so. Yes, absolutely so. So we had oversized gutters because, you know, when you put all your plants along the side of the house, you have massive downpour, it spurts out of the gutters down onto the plants, unpots them, some compost everywhere. But if you have oversized gutters, then it channels the water more effectively. You trap more of it. It's beautiful. It's aesthetic, which we really wanted that to kind of capture that sense of movement. But in terms of stopping it, making space for water, the really dense planting meant that it slowed the flow of water across the garden, so it's got more time to infiltrate, because the best storage system at all for water is the soil. So really healthy soil, plenty of air gaps, and there's the water moving slowly across it means that it will sink in, and then it's there later for the plants to use. But of course, it then doesn't run off downstream, rush out into the road, you know, overwhelm the sewers, flood the so fill the River Wye with sewage and poison the surfers down in sort of Weymouth. So it's actually localized solutions to much, much bigger problems, and that sense of agency. I mean, the climate fear is really strong for many people, I'm sure ourselves included, and just little things you can do to make a difference. You can see you've got an empty water butt and you fill it up, and if you drain it down when the garden's dry, you moisten the soil and you get better infiltration. Actually, a really cool thing that somebody pointed out was that actually when it rains, most water butts are full already. So you can't capture the water because you've already got water, because we're really stingy gardeners, aren't we? We don't want to use our precious water, you know, unless we absolutely have to. So one big takeaway for me is every time it stops raining, I've been kind of chucking water around my garden to make sure my water butts are nice and empty. So I can capture it next time. So
lots of great take-homes there, lots of really practical take-homes. In terms of the plants that were used, are there plants out there that truly enjoy being very wet and then very dry, very wet, very dry? What kind of would be a good plant list to recommend to anyone that is liable to have flooding in their outdoor space?
Well,
or is it the way you plant them instead of actual plants? Yeah.
In terms of the garden, I'm in the process of doing my website, so I'm going to put the plant list upon my website so people can look at that. Hopefully, by the time this podcast goes out, I'll achieve this, but stand by people otherwise. Plants. So we've discussed how creating mounds and raised areas can create points of drainage, so you can plant things that like that sort of environment. But what was really exciting was exploring water plants, bog plants. I got some native wild species from Wild Haweswater in Cumbria, just over the hill from Daleford Composts, and it's where it's associated with the Alpine Garden Society as well. And it's an RSPB place, but it does restoration projects for flooding meadows and stuff like that. the way the natural environment deals with flooding, I think, is really interesting. So water meadows, you can grow fritillaries and you can grow tall grasses, marsh buttercups and things. And you don't tend to think about that in a gardening perspective. But those plants which actually take quite a lot of water, marginal plants. I mean, think about caltha. In spring, when it's flowering, this is marsh marigold, of course, it's up to its neck in water, happy as Larry, doesn't mind at all. But actually, it grows in woodlands very often or stream margins. And in summer, when it's really, really, really dry, the caltha just carries on pottering along or it dies back a bit. But it doesn't really care as long as there's a little water down the bottom there somewhere, as long as it's not actually desertified. Okay. So what I discovered and what was exciting was that the plants we consider as marginals, Regerzia, Filipendula, various rushes and reeds and primula families and calthas and so on, are far, far more adaptable than we realise. So in terms of embracing your bog, they will take more dry than you imagine and also more wet than you imagine.
Yeah, I that's really good and useful information. And I think sometimes we underestimate plants. We think that they're not going to cope or they're not going to be okay. And sometimes they really are. So it is about experimenting. And, like you were saying about climate fear, with changing, climate as we have right now, we've got a short opportunity to try different plants and see how they will adapt to the changing environment right now, so that we know what to do when things, do perhaps get worse. And what I love to experiment in the garden, and I have planted things that absolutely theoretically wouldn't necessarily do okay, and they might not thrive for a year or two, but it's like they have their own ability to adapt to the environment, and then maybe in year 2, 3 and 4 they've actually grown really well. And I found that, and I've actually documented this as the geek that I am on my spreadsheet, so that I have reference to that. So when I'm talking about that with people, I can actually say, well, actually, this is the experiment that I've done. And I just, plants have adapted over years long before us and will do long after us as well. And I think sometimes we underestimate them. Do you know what I mean? Like plants do adapt.
Very true.
Otherwise they won't survive, long after us. So, I think we have to give them a little bit more credit in that respect. Not all plants.
They tend to get pigeonholed by nurseries and by the horticultural trade, because what do it grow? It will like this. It doesn't what it will like best, what it will like optimally. But actually, it might take a little bit more shade. I like looking at plants in the wild environment. So I was in Greece last week and I walked up a mountain. I saw my first ever wild Greek cyclamen. It's very exciting. What you'll notice about them is very, very cool. Oh my God, I'm back there as soon as possible. I'm back to Holland for the chrysanthemums, back to everywhere. But you'll notice that this time of year they're in crevices in the rock. They're in a little bit of shade. So they'll very often choose places to grow that they want to grow. So in the same way as you might grow some plants against a sunny wall to make sure you get those anurines, for example, get that dry and that heat. Some things, if you put the root of the corm next to a nice damp rock on the shady side, you'll get the performance there. So those microenvironments are really, really important, and it is always worth experimenting. And to be fair, if it looks miserable all hell, you can always dig it up and put it somewhere else, can't you?
Yeah, exactly that. I always think it's really good for beginner gardeners to have the guidance that nurseries and garden centres give you on their labels. That's important. If it says it,
they're always scared to deviate away from that.
Yeah, but as a beginner gardener, I do understand that, and I understand why you would give that information, because you want people to be successful. So I many years ago would have bought plants and stuck them in shade when they should have been for sun, or vice versa. And then, you can feel a little bit like you're doing something wrong, or you're not. People always say to me, oh, I don't have green fingers, that kind of thing. And I'm like, no, everyone has green fingers. But I understand why the labels are like that. But I think after a year or two, when you're getting into gardening and you're understanding it a little bit more, 100% experiment. If you can, if you are able, experiment, because plants constantly will surprise me. So just saying that we're sitting at Michael's at the moment. Look at the plants that you have got in here, growing perfectly well.
Let's turn Naomi round.
Turn me around, let me see.
Dun,
Oh,
dun,
lovely.
dun, 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 dun. Is that a good tour?
Very good. Fantastic.
Even a pond.
There's
Look,
even a
you see the
pond.
pond?
Fantastic. That's really great. That's really good. Yeah, I do think people get intimidated, don't they?
Inside. Sorry, go on.
Sorry,
I
Naomi.
think people sometimes get intimidated by sort of really expert gardeners, TV gardeners, people who know stuff and are experts. But actually, what people don't necessarily realise is that they've been killing plants since before you were born. Very often.
And there's never a right way.
They've murdered more plants than you've had hot dinners, and it's a case of the expertise from years of trial and error, and that's how you become expert. So
I've always got this theory: wisteria, when they grow in the wild, they flower, right?
Yeah.
So why do we worry about the pruning when they're going to flower anyway? Perhaps.
Well, this is the thing about pruning, particularly.
Exactly.
With fruit, I mean, I have quite a light hand. I mean, don't want to overdo it. I mean, I love a beautiful espalier apple tree as much as the next person, but actually, if what you've got is a whopping great standard, give yourself a break. Also, massive roses; they're a long way up and spiky. Why bother?
Yeah, it's true.
They're going to work it out for themselves.
I'm not very good at pruning. I don't always remember. I certainly don't always. And I know that there are times where you should prune, but other times I get it. But I don't always do it according to when it theoretically should be done. I learn about the plant and I look at the plant and I think that's actually really in need of it, now, unless it's going to be so totally detrimental to the plant. And I will light prune whenever I so think the plant needs it,
Picking up on what you just said, Ellen, it's in many ways that observation, that understanding, the understanding your own plants, the understanding your garden, the climate, just getting to know them. It's like you can tell when a plant's thirsty because its leaves are a little bit dull and dry. And plants very often will tell you what they need and when they need it if you're observant, and that's kind of the best gardening.
Yeah,
and you're building a relationship more personally with your plant as well, which relates probably the most to houseplants in particular. So
I leave my husband to water my houseplants when I'm away, and he always says, "Well, how will I know when to water them?" I said,
"You just have to feel it.
You have to look at the plants. You have to look at the plants. Don't water unless you think they need to be watered." So I've not even said to him, "I want you to water once a week." I've not gone there because that's not the case for all of the plants. I'm like, just spend some time looking at the plants and feeling the soil. And it's taken a while. It's taken a while to get that message through. But he genuinely is much more knowledgeable now about the plants purely through watering them on their schedule. So he doesn't necessarily know what every single plant is, but he will say now, we're sitting, in the lounge watching telly and I'm back, he'll say, "Oh, I can see that one might need water." So he's becoming more connected through going via just kind of connecting with them rather than the label saying water weekly, which is kind of good. So that's a good lesson. Connect with your plants, indoors or outdoors.
Definitely.
Work on their schedule if you can, not yours. That's great. This was a lovely planty chat, but shall we talk about your books as well? And so
I'm subject of books and expertise.
You've got 9 books out, and the Chrysanthemum was the 10th. Is that right? Yeah,
that's right. Yes.
Oh well, we want to go in depth with your new book, but before we get to that, can you briefly run us through the 9 books that you've already had published pre the Chrysanthemums?
Okay, so second I did a children's book for the RHS many moons ago, which isn't in print anymore, but Plant Lover's Guide for Snowdrops, which is very snowdroppy, but it's the sort of snowdrop book you can read in the bath. It's very accessible and, chill. And then there's An Orchard Odyssey, which is me kind of going geek about the environment, because you walk through towns, you walk through cities, you drive along roads, and there are fruit everywhere. So I always feel that people think, "Oh my God, it's really sad. They grubbed up all the orchards. They're not there anymore. That wonderful historic landscape isn't there, and I can't connect with it." But actually, there are fruit trees literally everywhere, littering the countryside.
Really good
An
point.
orchard.
Yeah.
Self-set old fragments of orchard. There's the fact that for conservation purposes, orchards are defined as 5 trees with crown edges, not more than, oh goodness, is it 20 metres or 100 metres apart? Anyway, within a fairly large space, an orchard is defined as. And so if you've got, I've got the world's smallest garden at my home garden, and I think I've got 13 or 14 fruit trees in there. But if you think about 100 metres, for example, and you count how many fruit trees are in your neighbours' gardens and their neighbours' gardens and the houses opposite's gardens, most of us actually live in an orchard we can't even see. So this is my
cool subject.
This is my sort of, it's super cool. I really love that one. And then just before Christmas last year, I brought out the RHS Winter Garden, which again is my love letter to winter gardening. Why do we shut the door in October and not come out again until April? There's a whole world of loveliness, beautiful light effects, frost, berries, bulbs, wonderfulness. So that was a real passion project for me. And then there's the Beautiful Variety series, which there are, I think, 12 in total, but I've written myself dahlias, hydrangeas, lilacs, lilies, ranunculus, and then I've got chrysanthemums, which is about to come out now. So they're the celebration of classic flowers. That you can pick them, you can arrange them, you can grow them. They're internationally famous. They're absolutely glamorous, and people are obsessed by those sorts of flowers. So it's all about that.
Ranunculus.
Yeah, that's a cool one. I've got that one as well somewhere.
Yeah,
I love it. Oh, there it is.
I need to see it. Oh, I can see it too. Yeah.
Well, as Ellen's written a couple of books, I've written a book, kind of like a little bit of book talk chat for a moment. How do you write, Naomi? Do you hide yourself away? Do you write in your sleep? Is it very mechanical? Like, what is your writing style almost? Because for me, I'm usually less busy in the autumn, like October through to January. And that is when I wrote my book. But I could not imagine doing it any other time of year. So do you also use a certain time of year, or kind of like, how do you make it work? Especially with 10 books to your name.
We haven't talked about 11 yet. But I write to the deadline, obviously, one must. And the Beautiful Variety. I do my best, I like to keep in with my publishers. They're my friends. I hope. But with the Beautiful Variety series, we have to get the photography in when the flowers are at their absolute peak. And my co-creator, Georgiana Lane, zips around Europe. She flies over to America. She comes to the UK to get the best, or the Netherlands, wherever the best flowers are. So we first met on dahlias in Cornwall. But with chrysanthemums, we were running around Nottinghamshire, went to Norrell Nursery to see all the little hardy ones there. I can't remember, I think it was hydrangeas. She managed to shoot in 4 days in England, France, and America just to get the right varieties and get them in the peak condition. But something like lilacs, you get that window, and that is the window you have. So if you get a downpour or frost, and they have to look super sexy. So when do I write? I write when I need to write, which is pretty much all the time. I probably do write in my sleep, in actual fact, which comes on to how I write. It layers up. I've obviously had a fair bit of practice by now, so I go away and think about it. And I kind of, it's like, what do I know about dahlias? Tender, have been unfashionable, now fashionable again, come from South America, exhibition flowers, glamorous. Yeah, I can write a book on that. But then I write down everything I know. Then I do some trawling. Then I wander off and think about some things. So I do some thinking, then I put in a structure. Then I do some more thinking. Then I write some stuff. I sort of throw it at a page. It's a layered process. But the words, for me, happen often when I'm not at my desk. So in that window where you're waking up and before the day dawns properly, or when you're going for a lovely long walk, when you're pottering in the garden. So it's always there in the back of my mind. But I think having the confidence to backbrain things and not chain yourself to your desk necessarily, unless that deadline really is, like the one after Chelsea was, absolutely hard on the boards. You don't need to do that. As long as you give yourself the time to think, then the words, for me at least, come quite easily.
Yeah,
How
cool.
do you write, Michael?
I think, well, someone gave me the best tip many years ago, and there's a website called writeordie.com. And you need to, because it stops procrastination, you literally type into this screen all of your thoughts. And it doesn't even have to be correct or have a flow. It's just like, brain dumping. And it entices you to do that because whenever you stop typing, it shakes the screen and plays awful violin music. And so you literally are forced to empty your brain. And that,
oh my God, that would ruin my concentration.
That was me.
It encourages you to just empty your mind at that stage. And so I didn't use that for my book, but I did kind of use this, just emptying it onto the page and knowing that it won't look like the text the first time. It will be a mind dump, but that it needs to be like that. And I think people procrastinate and wait until they can write it perfectly, but it just it's like a journey. And I think a lot of the stuff I just write very instinctively as well. And I'm quite lucky that I was able to write my book very much in my voice as well. So it it was just relatively easy, really, which I feel is I cheated a bit.
You cheated. You cheated.
You're allowed to find it easy. It's okay. You're amongst friends.
Yeah, it's not cheating.
But the hardest bit was the edit, actually, when you then have to justify why you've said something the way you've said it. And whether that reference to Hollyoaks works worldwide or not.
That's a very good point, because I'm very firm about how I say things, because I have my voice, I have my vocabulary, I have my way of saying things. And sometimes you're there with an editor and they're going, oh, no, you don't want to say it like that. And I'm like, I do, mate. I really do, because that's what I said and that's what I ment to say.
Yeah.
That's how I did it. That was me.
And then you have these funny things like when we did Snowdrops, there's a sort of snowdrop which has Charlockii. It's got little pointy split spathes, which are known as ass's ears in the snowdrop trade. You try getting that past an American editor.
Yeah. I had a lot of these instances, just references that just didn't flow or make sense or just, maybe we're too cheap.
I've written ears of a donkey, a bit like a donkey's ears, and then across 2 paragraphs, you've got it 4 times. It's like a bit like an idea, a mule type creature, sort of, quadrupeds, floppy ears that differ. It's like, my God, it's like what's the popular orange vegetable description of a carrot. You get these funny things.
When I write, the only thing that is frustrating for me is that I have to have everything done in the house in order to concentrate on writing. So the washing has to be done.
You'll want to vacuum.
No, I never want to vacuum. Who wants to vacuum? I'm not saying it has to be clean, but everything has to be kind of done. Like my brain has a lot going on in it. So if the washing's not done or the plants haven't been watered, or I don't know, those things have to be done. Otherwise, I simply can't concentrate. And it doesn't matter if I take myself away to go and write in another place. I'll still be thinking, but I need to get the washing done or whatever it is. So I do a lot of writing at night, mainly because in the day I've got all the other things that need to be done. And other than that, it flows okay. But that's a silly thing. And by the time I was writing the second book, this sounds a bit OCD, and I asked you about that earlier on. I even have to have the things on my desk in their places.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and things need to be where they need to be in order for me to sit and concentrate and write. So, but otherwise, all good.
I think I go into deep concentration because I completely abandon everything around me to the grail of writing. But I do tend to do things in my breaks. I tend to put the dishwasher on or put the washing machine on, then because it's a very neat break to go and hang the washing up, isn't it? And then you've done a thing that you can go back in. So,
Yeah,
Cool.
interesting how our brains are all different. Let's talk about chrysanthemums because
Especially Gertrude, I've just
they're so
discovered.
beautiful. Your new book is,
on.
of course, titled Chrysanthemums. That is stunning.
It's hairy.
It is hairy.
Gertrude is one of very few hairy chrysanthemums I've just learnt, Naomi.
Michael likes it because it's hairy. It reminds him of him.
It is. You were so can remind us what the other one is on there?
Gertrude. Gertrude is unexpected and almost disconcertingly fuzzy. The back of each of her petals is covered with fine, pale, silvered spikes, and these give the impression that the flower has been caught in a hard frost and a thaw is yet to come. Really nice. Also, the heritage French variety Oiseau de Paradis, bird of paradise, has spiny curls as well. Yeah, really nice. But anyway, chrysanthemums. I'm already in. I'm ready for the revival.
Let's talk about chrysanthemums first of all. They get a bit of a reputation for being old school, out of fashion, grandma. Now, if I was allowed to swear, because my editor would be really cross. Well, he is cross when we swear, isn't he? Garrett, I'm now going to swear. What a load of bullshit. How can a plant be out of fashion? Do you know how can plants go in and out of trends? Plants are plants and they're all beautiful. What do you think, Naomi?
Plants are beautiful. I think you can get into them. One of the reasons I love the deep dive of an illustrated monograph where you look at something and you find out everything you possibly can about it and you write it down as excitingly as possible. You find out loads and loads of new things about it. So for me, I grew up knowing about hardy chrysanthemums because that's what my family grew. My favourite uncle and my grandmother. And you know, chrysanthemums, you get them on garage forecourts and you get them in supermarkets. And I've never had a downer on them, if you see what I mean. I don't think flowers really deserve having a downer on.
No.
But chrysanthemums have had a bit of a bad press, haven't they?
Is that because, are they sometimes associated as being a funeral flower, like culturally? Do you think that is a barrier? And is that a barrier that we will be able to overcome if we are indeed spearheading a revival?
I think so. I was sort of digging into this into this hate of chrysanthemums, finding out who these haters are. And because when I'm doing my research, you've got people who only are selling. You go and buy chrysanthemums, you only have one of each variety because they need to be enough to go around. And that doesn't sound like an unpopular plant to me. It's in Australia and America, they're massively popular. And I think there's a couple of things. One of which is that, three things. One of which is they have that kind of, they were really ostentatious and, crazy and bonkers, like an exhibition flowers in the same way dahlias were. So I suspect that they had a little bit of a downturn then. And because they were introduced as exhibition flowers, first of all, there's a very in-depth categorization system that can be quite intimidating, but it only really applies if you're going to exhibit the flowers. Otherwise, you can grow them, you can enjoy them, you can cut them, you can arrange them. And you don't need to worry about whether it's a sort of 7B with a bunch of letters after it. And then there's because they're short day plants, but therefore you can organise the light levels so you can get all year round flowering. It became easier to produce them in bulk, and they last really, really, really well as a cut flower. So as Michael, you're saying that they get used as sort of funeral flowers, they do, because they last forever. They perform really well. They're not that expensive as a cut flower. So I guess that sort of workhorse ethic, they're ubiquitous. They're common as muck. Whereas, in fact, really cool. I don't think that's fair at all. So these are the things that I think have contributed to that. But with dahlias being awesome and epic, and I mean, hydrangeas had the same problem. I mean,
true. And they've overcome it now. Do you feel? I feel they have.
I do feel they have.
Yeah. And I almost didn't notice that had changed. But yeah, that's a really, really good point.
Tell us about chrysanthemums. Let's talk about growing them, because they do have a reputation for being tricky. Is that justified?
Well, one of the things which was interesting about writing this book is there are kind of three categories. There are your pot mums, the ones that grow in the trade. And there are literally tens of millions of those produced every year. And that's probably just Holland alone. So those are the cut flowers. Then there's the ones which are into both the exhibition camp and the florist grower camp, which are incredibly popular. And if you're an exhibitor, you think about how to disbud them and how to create sprays and how to make them very perfect according to these categorization. You're a florist grower, you don't worry about that. And those ones do tend to be tender and do tend to become more exotic as the year goes on. But actually, they're no more tender than dahlias. And then there are the hardy garden plants, which actually people have forgotten about. And those are just really good, plenty of sunshine, plenty of drainage, crack on. I mean, obviously all this stuff varies, but...
and they'd be the best kind of gateway chrysanthemums to the general audience, right?
If you want a gateway drug chrysanthemums, if you want a slippery slope to but there's Plant Heritage has national collections, so you can go and visit them. You can, there's lots of nurseries that supply them, and a couple of nurseries say that they are struggling to supply mainstream nurseries with enough hardy chrysanthemums. So the word's been on the street for a little while that they're overdue a revival. I think the supply is improving.
Okay, nice.
Good, I love them.
Yeah, definitely. Well, they've got all the variation that you get with dahlias.
Yeah.
They've got the colour. Fair enough, they haven't always got the ease of growth, but there is a way around that as well, which is fab. So, yeah, I think they could be next big thing.
I think they could be the next big thing, like different shapes and sizes. The huge, big ones that you see on the show are absolutely, completely and utterly stunning. When you can buy them like in pots for autumn or for Halloween decorations, that kind of thing. People then throw them away because they think they flower and go over fairly quickly, and then they chuck them away thinking they wouldn't continue to grow. But actually, if you just plant them in the garden, they would probably grow. Many years ago, I was at the gym with Hench Herbivore. Remember Hench? We interviewed him on the podcast once. And I was telling him that I love gardening and plants. And he said, you need to meet my mate, whoever, in the gym. So I went in one day and this old guy has grown chrysanthemums for, I can't remember how long, but practically his whole life. And he takes cuttings and he just has a chrysanthemum garden. And he brought me in 4 cuttings of various chrysanthemums. This was whenever we interviewed Hench. So nice. We're talking 5 or 6 years ago, and they still grow on my allotment to this day. There's white and like the very classic-y kind of orangey ones, a deeper red one, and they're so beautiful. And actually they're so reliable. They come up every year, and they look like late summer into autumn is when they generally seem to flower, and bringing that kind of colour to the garden at the time when other things are going over. And it looks they're lovely.
But I think one of the other kind of obstacles or barriers is we don't really plant for autumn very well in the UK. Like in North America, I'm sure, getting your mums in September is an essential part of creating your autumn display.
It is, yeah.
And we just don't have that kind of culture, really. So that could be a nice way to change. It gives the garden centres an opportunity to sell more at a different time,
Well, definitely. But that autumn colour, I mean, some chrysanthemums, hardy chrysanthemums particularly now, I mean, some are scented, they're beautifully scented, there's citronella, there's lemon scented, some are have this sort of classic herby fragrance, and some of them actually have autumn colour as well, the leaves turn. So they really are extraordinarily solid, particularly in a sort of cottage garden setting.
Definitely.
Wow, nice.
Where can listeners purchase your beautiful book and prior books from? Can we find them online in bookshops? Can you tell us a bit more?
I think the phrase is wherever books are sold. signed copies are available to people in the UK from my website. Order them from your local bookshop. Big online retailers have them in great stacks. So yes, they are widely available. And please go out and buy tons, obviously.
Of course. And where can people find out more about you, Naomi, and the planting lists you were talking about as well? So your website and social media.
Our website, I'm in the process of updating. Obviously, I've had quite a busy year so far, so that's ongoing. But yeah, I'm there on Twitter or X as Naomi Slade. I'm on Instagram, Naomi Slade Gardening. I'm on LinkedIn as Naomi Slade. I chat when I'm chatted to, and I post as regular as I can manage. So,
very cool.
I'm around. I'm easy to find.
Cool.
That's really cool.
This has been such a nice, we kind of came here to talk about your books and Chrysanthemums, but we've also talked about water-wise gardening. We've talked about how to be a good author, little author tips as well. We talked about the correct way to grow plants. It's been a really, really nice, varied conversation. So thank you.
I'm really happy because it's bang on 40 minutes. So I'm going to go away feeling really good about it.
You're so square, honestly. Thank you very much for being here today. We hope to see you soon.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's been great chatting to you both.
Thank you.
All right, babe.
What's this t-shirt that you've got on? It looks really funky.
It's just like a little design. It's from a plant swap in LA, a guy that I know. It's really cool. Thank you for noticing, Ellen.
Of course, it looks really cool. So I think we should explain that you're in Japan and I'm not in Japan, in the UK.
I'm in Japan. I love that place, not Japan.
I'm saying not Japan because I'm about to say that we're both in bed, so that would sound really weird had I not already said we're not in the same country.
But you said it was the first time we did such a long reach recording, but I'm sure we must have done before.
No, I said that...
Well, we've done it when you've been in US.
Pre-recording, I said this is the first time that we've ever done a podcast recording where we've both been in bed.
Ah, okay.
So what's the time?
I've always been in bed.
Yeah, exactly. I've never been in bed until this moment. So the time was like 7 a.m. in the morning, isn't it?
Yeah. But did we ever, what would be even more exotic if you were in US already and we would be literally recording almost a day apart?
Yeah. Do you know, so I go back
But we're not.
week. I go back to the US next week.
Yeah.
So we might just about manage a gossip recording a day apart. That would be really strange.
I think time is so weird, isn't it?
I know.
I don't know.
How can it be different?
You know that one where you skip a day if you travel a certain way or something? Yeah. I'm sure I've done that years ago. Yeah.
If you travel to Australia, for example, you miss a whole day. It's 18 hours or something like that. I don't know. Anyway, tell us
what are your jet lag tips, Ellen?
I want to jet lag.
Oh, well, tell me your jet lag tips first.
Okay.
That will help me to tell you.
Honestly, to me,
I feel like I'm really in the zombie mode. Yeah.
You look like you are, and also you look like you've got the jitters at the same time. Like your legs are moving so fast, it's giving me eye ache.
Makes me look like a zombie. Thank you.
Well, how do you feel? Do you have jet lag?
I feel like I had 2 nights pretty good sleep actually, but they kind of been broken. So, but I think I've just persevered, and I went to sleep okay the last 2 nights, but then you just kind of wake up, and what was it? I went to sleep at 11 p.m. and then I woke up at midnight, and it felt like I'd been asleep all night, and I looked at the time and it was midnight. I was like, what the hell? But I think also the trick that I did the night before is not to look at your phone and the time, because you kind of don't need to know. You know it's not time to get up, and that's enough,
Yeah, I know.
So,
just drink lots of water, and just make yourself at the time you've got to get up. Do you know what I mean? Don't be laying in. Get up.
Yeah. Oh no, I just rolled with the new time. Really, yeah. But it's I just hate that feeling. But I was thinking, but also you need to go to sleep with a good intention as well. Like the first night, I was like, oh no, am I going to sleep? Am I going to sleep? Well, if I'm going to feel like that, of course I'm not going to sleep, you know? So I kind of tried to flip that on his head as well. So yeah.
Oh gosh, you're big yawn. Like a little guided meditation before going to sleep can help as well. Like just put a meditation on just as you're snoozing.
Yeah.
You know?
But I'm really as you know, I'm really I'm a big fan of meditation, but I find it hardest to do before sleep because it does make me go to sleep.
Well, that's okay.
I think cool, but then, I suppose.
A sleep meditation is okay because you're still, the guide is still speaking to you while you're asleep, going in and all of that jazz. Like, I wouldn't do specific, different meditations.
Yeah.
It would be a sleep meditation, and that can be really useful. But anyway,
okay, that's cool. I was because what?
Mostly, I want to know.
Very important.
I know there's a real delay here as we're recording. So mostly, I want to know. I want you to tell us what you're doing in Japan. That's the most exciting part of this.
Okay. Well, first of all, just to finish off, I'm staying up in the mountains, and sometimes when something is too quiet. And I feel like I actually sleep better with a little bit of ambient noise. Because even when I'm at home, I always have the window open and stuff. So I actually, last night in particular, I was playing, I got this little, I don't know, you didn't record at Glee with the Underground pod, did you? You'd recorded another time, I think.
Yeah.
Anyway, did you get they gave away these promo speakers?
Yeah.
Which was such a cool thing. And it's only like this big, it's a tiny little cube. And I brought it with me on my travels and stuff. And I played nature sounds through the night, which helped me sleep so much better because it's just really weird being in the mountains where it's so deathly quiet. I actually don't necessarily find that comforting. I like some
I'm opposite.
Ambient kind of nature sound.
I'm completely opposite. Like the silence is what I don't want any noise. Silence is perfect for sleep. Completely.
Some noise of nature, no. I don't want to feel like everything around me is dead.
Noise of nature is great for sure, but I would to sleep. I like total silence, blackout silence. Thank you.
No. I really realise. I don't know. In recent times, I need some sort of ambient noise. Yeah, it's really. But it's cool to have this little speaker now. It's really changed my life, that tiny piece of technology. Anyway, It's starting to get really sunny. It's strange because I am right up in the mountains and you're in the clouds sometimes. It's really cool. But yeah, I'm here.
I want to know what you're doing in Japan. What are you actually doing there?
Well, if you didn't butt in, you would know.
Well, I've asked you 3 times and you've butted in me. So that's why we're where we're at.
I've really butted into myself.
Yeah.
There's this amazing clip of the Spice Girls where Jerry butts into herself in a conversation and then apologizes to herself. It's so funny. But anyway, oh my God, it's getting really sunny. Oh my God, I can barely see you, Ellen. Working with the English Garden Barracuda, the garden centre, and they got a little garden school, and I've been doing the workshops here for a few years. And so I'm out here, doing the autumn festival again, which is cool because I hadn't been for a while. And yesterday was really cool because I don't know if you know, in Europe, they do the flower trials, where different companies open their doors and show new products. And they have a Japanese version as well. And I was really honoured to be on the tour for the Japanese one. And so we went round and saw some different plant companies and I love that sort of thing. So yeah, it was such a cool day. And we're starting our workshops today. Talking about trendy plants, and then we're doing some demos. I'm doing a black and white container, and then we'll do the workshops with the students, then put them together. And so for 4 days. And then I've got like about 5 days spare afterwards. And I'm deliciously unplanned as well, which is cool. And very unlike me, Ellen Mary.
So you've got a car,
it's really cool.
haven't you? You've got a car to travel around in. So you like, Japan is your oyster. You can drive around and see.
Oh, no, but I only got a car while I'm at Barracuda, because it's from Barracuda to get back and forth to the garden centre. So of course,
Right.
I can look around this little area. But then I am thinking, like, maybe indeed, like, the next few days afterwards, car, I don't know. Yeah, I'll have a look. Anyway. So jet lag.
I'm sorry that we're boring you.
Oh, sorry.
Literally the biggest yawn.
You just can't fight it. It's like when your mouth just wants to do this big yawn. So, oh my God. And it's very, it's always very, very strange, very disconcerting, very thrilling to be in a place where you really are the only person, the only Westerner. And that's such a weird feeling. I don't know. It's really, so like in the hotel in particular, you know, I go to breakfast, I'm the only one that looks like me. And it's not many times in life you're like that. And it's really, it's really kind of special, but also scary.
Do people look at you? Like, do they sort of?
No, like, it's really different. Like, if I was to compare Japan and China for a moment, like, you know, when I've spent a lot of time in China, and when you are like a Laowai foreigner, you really stand out, and they're gonna stare at you, and like kids are probably gonna come up to you and, like, you know, tap you on the face or something. Or but when you're in Japan, they look at you, but when you're not looking.
Right.
So they're almost going to completely ignore you, but they've still seen you, if you know what I mean. Yeah. So much more kind of polite or kind of bashful about it, perhaps. Yeah. So,
Things like
which is
that.
funny, because then you really, sorry?
It's a good insight into how some people genuinely live. There's a lot of people, like,
Oh, totally.
you know, different ethnicities that are in places where they're, you know, very much on their own, and that's how they navigate the day.
No, it's really interesting to see it the other way around, in a way. Yeah. No, totally. So, yeah, it's interesting. And of course, I've been in any different food culture or anything like that. And, you know, the buffet is exciting for me, because I'm always like, what's that? I'm going to try it. What is it? I don't know.
I don't know, but I'm going to eat it.
I still don't even know what some things. I still don't know what some things I've eaten are until afterwards.
Or ever. You might not ever know what they are.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, but it's so cool, you know, and different stuff that, I don't know, like things that are alien to us that they would eat, or even the other way around. It's really, just fascinating, all this stuff. So, yeah, it's cool. I'm really happy to be here.
Good. I'm excited for you. I have to just
Thank you.
mention the cyclamen that I saw in your stories. That's sort of like purpley, lilac-y purple colour.
The blue one, yeah.
Yeah, it's not blue, is it? Don't give me that marketing spiel.
Yeah.
That is
What
beautiful.
about it?
Well, it's beautiful colour.
I know, it really is. I was like, really, you know what I'm like, when I see a plant that's cool, I can't hold back. I literally scream. And I kind of did. It was just amazing. Oh my God. And it's funny, because these blues have been around a few years. And and they're from Schoneveld in the Netherlands, and they were at the trials. And I'd always thought they were kind of like GM, genetically modified. And in Japan, there's different rules with that. So I wasn't surprised when I'd seen these in the past. And I worked with them, with these blue ones, maybe about 10 years ago when they were here in Japan. But apparently, they were kind of like open pollinated varieties. And now this is a proper F1. Which is really good, reliable. You're always going to get that same shade. So it's not GM at all. And it's going to be launched in Europe as well next year. So that is really, really cool that we've got to this, you know, blue, in inverted commas. It is, you know, the colour everyone's been striving for, at least. It's amazing we've got there naturally as well, which is super exciting. So, yeah, it was beautiful. Yeah, I couldn't believe
That's
it.
really cool. Will you be writing about it on your Grow This Not That Substack?
Yeah, of course. Oh, thank you for your interest, Ellen Mary.
Yeah, I'm plugging you for you.
Oh, but the other thing that was like, I just love innovation, and I don't know if you saw also on the stories these kind of like almost like little Valentine displays, like little kind of gifting kind of plants, which were basically like a little group of seedlings in a pot of all different colours. And the plant they'd use for this is celosia. And when I was a kid, I remember growing these from seed with my grandma, and they're very intriguing plants because, they have these big, colourful, feathery blooms. Those blooms can actually almost like naturally come on when the plant is very small, like a seedling. So you actually get this miniature bonsai form of celosia very naturally because the seedling flowers straight away. And they planted these in these little containers, like in heart shapes and all those different colours, with these tiny seedlings with little feathery blooms on, and just releasing them for like Mother's Day or Valentine's Day or something like that. And it's just absolutely amazing, that innovation. And just, yeah. Oh my God, I was overwhelmed. Yeah.
Wow,
so cool. Just when you think you've seen all the ideas out there, there's more come along. And another plant, which interestingly I'd known was kicking around for a few years because it was from farming in Italy, and it's a very tallish petunia, so almost like this superbissima type that people are starting to grow again. And it's like a cut flower petunia because it's got such long stems, and you can cut the stems and use them in a vase, and obviously fragrant as well because they're like the double ones with sugary fragrance, and they were for sale here as well. So that was amazing to see that. And I was like, I know where these are from. And yeah, really cool to see how plants also travel in the world, different genetics and new stuff and all of that jazz. So
that's really cool. Like, I'm excited for you. I'm actually looking forward to reading your Substack about it more, for sure.
Oh, thank you, Ellen Mary. Oh,
thank you,
How
Ellen
are
Mary.
you, darling?
Okay, Mr. Plant Geek. I'm fine, thank you very much. I'm like don't ask me what I'm doing. It's nowhere near as exciting as what you're doing. I'm sort of closing down the lot.
Excitement is subjective.
Well, I think being in Japan, seeing all this new innovation is pretty exciting. I am shutting down the allotment for kind of winter because I go back to the US next week.
Shutting down, I love that.
I know. I mean, it never shuts down, does it? I just do my bit, to keep it from things blowing away and whatnot, and weeding it and mulching it and all that jazz. So there's a lot going on there, and busy work. And just before I go back, I'm at Malvern for 3 days.
Has it been like a good allotment season, or have you got rid of all your courgettes, for example?
I mean, no, it's been the cut flowers have done brilliantly, but the vegetables are hit and miss this year. It's just because it was rainy for such a long time earlier on in the season. But yeah, I've had plenty of fruit and veg, so yeah, all good. Like, I've got a load of stuff in there for Christmas because I'm coming back at Christmas this year, so I've got lots of winter veg growing that will just get left, and what is there when I get back eaten, so yeah. And then I'm actually going tomorrow, and I'm hosting and speaking in the Garden Theatre. You mentioned the Spice Girls actually earlier on. One of the talks I'm hosting is with Nikki Chapman about her new book. And I know we have to talk about gardening, but I'm definitely going to be posting some Spice Girl gossip. Like, that's a given, isn't it?
Which Spice Girl is the most likely to grow tomatoes?
Yeah. Well, Jerry now, probably, because she lives in the country.
Oh my God,
right?
That's really cool, Adam.
Yeah. So, yeah, that would be really cool. That's
Need to be in the country to grow tomatoes. You don't need to be in the countryside to grow tomatoes.
No, but
bless you.
I reckon
That's cute. Wow.
Which one's most likely? And I thought that would be Jerry because she looks like a country girl. That's that really.
Oh, cool. Malvern will be cool.
Yes, looking forward to Malvern and hosting a gardener's question time with John Wheatley, who I completely adore, and Adam Frost. Talking with Chris Collins about organic allotmenteering. Chris Collins actually if people don't follow him, he has a wealth of knowledge about organic gardening. He's head of horticulture at Garden Organic, and my allotment neighbour Sheridan runs the events for Norfolk, the Norfolk Organic Group.
Yeah.
And she said to me last week, "Who do you think could come and do a talk?" So I gave her a list, and Chris Collins was on the and he actually went and done the talk last night. I saw on his LinkedIn.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, and the picture of him there is with my allotment neighbour. So that was really cute. That was nice. So yes, that's it really. Nothing as exciting as Japan. Do you agree? Like, you're literally making me feel like I need a wee. You're shaking from head to toe.
I just get ready for the day. I can't believe how sunny it is, because yesterday it was really cloudy when I woke up, so it's really nice. Yeah.
Well, that's lovely. Have you seen any chrysanthemums?
And I need to roll with one.
Have you seen any chrysanthemums since you've been there?
Yeah, there was a couple of specialist growers at the show, actually, with some cool looking stuff. Swimming hat types, you know.
That's fun, since that's what today's episode is, all about chrysanthemums. When I go back to the US, it will all be chrysanthemums. Everywhere you go, there's chrysanthemums and pumpkins.
Yeah. But it's so nice that they do so much more with the fall there, because it's just different in UK because it's just shorter or not as defined in weather, or just because we're lazy.
I don't really know.
We never decorate autumn months or anything, are we? It's like, it just kind of doesn't even exist, does it?
Well, I mean,
it's this tiny sliver of time.
Don't forget, it used to exist. The seasons have just kind of like merged over recent years. In the US, or where I am, there is a very definite seasonal change. But I think maybe it's because, certainly where I am, it's so roasting hot in the summer. Like, it's unbearably hot. That you look forward to fall such a lot, so you kind of celebrate more, perhaps. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like, oh my goodness, it's not sweltering hot anymore, but it's still beautiful weather. So it might just be, you know, kind of joyous more, perhaps. I don't really know, but it is lovely.
That's a good point, actually. Yeah, because conversely, in summer, no one's looking for any respite at the end of the summer. They're just sad that it's over. Somewhere like North Carolina or where I am, you're super looking forward to autumn. Because you have quite enough of like drippings wet for months with sweat.
Anyway.
I guess, in UK, it's like they're just, summer's done, let's skip to Christmas.
Exactly. Well, I know you need to get on with your day, and I definitely need to go because I have to get up really early tomorrow. And it's been lovely chatting to you.
Oh, no. You're driving to Malvern tomorrow?
I'm actually driving to your old town.
Oh, you're driving there tomorrow?
I'm driving to your old town, Ipswich, tomorrow.
Yeah?
What the hell for? To have a photo shoot with Jen, who I'm working with for Ethica Content.
Cool.
Do some planning and work and catch up and stuff. And then I go to Malvern after that.
Ding dong.
There you go.
Oh, cool. Nice. Enjoy.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Have a lovely time in Japan.
Oh, nice. Yeah, cool. Thank you. And I'll see you in 2 weeks' time, darling, when you'll be again in bed, I'm sure.
Other way around, yeah. Bye.
I can't believe this light. It's just perfect. All right, cool. Yes, wonderful. Bye.
Hey guys, the sponsor for Series 16 of the plant-based podcast is Grow This Not That, which is the Substack by myself, Michael Perry, also known as Mr. Plant Geek. This is the place where you can get all the hot happenings in the hort world directly to your inbox. Every Friday, there's a hort report which brings together the influencer, industry and home gardener worlds, and every Wednesday, I'll recommend 5 plants that you can grow, and subscribers get an extra free as well. All you need to do to find out more about my wonderful Substack called Grow This Not That is go to mrplantgeek.substack.com. Hope to see you there. The music for the Plant-Based Podcast is part of the song Grow by Mikey James, and our editor is Gareth Patch of Semi Echo.